Hi there, everybody.
Hey there.
It's Isaac and Angie.
Yeah, we just had a nice meal, didn't we?
Yeah, we're out on a date, and we were just talking. We've been wanting to talk about this topic for quite a while. I've been talking to a lot of women about it over the years since my book, Redeeming Childbirth, came out. And Isaac has had the opportunity to talk to a lot of guys about this kind of topic as well. And that is reasons why women don't want to have another kid or want to have a big family, right? Isaac wanted to title this topic. What did you want to title it?
I don't remember.
Oh, it was something like how big families happen.
Oh, there we go. Yes.
But we thought that you guys would relate to some of these, and we would just want to encourage you. We have gotten letters from people asking how we decided to have so many kids. People assume things.
Yeah, we definitely weren't kid people in the beginning. Hadn't been around a lot of kids, and we took it one kid at a time. Originally set out to have two, but there's a lot of reasons why, you know, that we may not even realize why we stopped having kids, that might not even be spoken about in the marriage. And that is disappointing. It could be challenging because we've experienced something really incredible we never set out to do, which is 7 children.
Yeah, and one baby in heaven.
Yes.
But a lot of people assume that we always wanted to have a big family, and I just want to assure you or tell you that that was never the original plan.
Yeah.
We don't come from big families. I have one brother, one sister.
Yeah. And I have a, same. So.
Yeah, same kind of scenario. So for us, we had a boy and a girl, and we thought we were done. And then we started really becoming challenged with different things, and that's where I think it's important that we have dialogue and we encourage one another to be open with our spouses about our fears. So the first reason would be fear.
Absolutely. A lot of fears.
So why don't you share what maybe the guy fear would be?
Well, I mean, how am I going to support another kid? I mean, it just so happens a lot of times as men, we're hustling with our careers and so forth, and the income is growing or not, that it's hard to imagine adding more children to the table. But I would just say, is that a lack of trust in God's provision? What does God say? He says, I love the children. And they're
views them as a blessing.
A blessing.
Yeah.
And so why would we mistrust that and potentially miss out on a blessing because we're honoring God by, allowing him to create another child. So
just speaking to that specifically, there was a time within the last few years where Isaac was building a business and financially things were super ultra tight. Okay, I don't know if you've been in this kind of position where money's just tight. Okay. And trusting God in allowing him to provide the blessing of another child we were at this position where in the past we were always really successful. It was at the worst financial
time of our lives.
Yeah.
To decide, to allow God to have our seventh child.
And to be really providing for us in that regard, right? Yeah. And it wasn't until then, so we actually had 6 kids to where we actually felt like we could provide. But truly trusting him, the thing that God really laid upon my heart was, is there ever a time not to trust God?
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want you to think about that for a minute. Is there ever a time not to trust God? No. And so Solomon's just been a huge blessing to our whole family and helped us get through that. So
there's a lot of other fears, but for time, I think we should keep moving.
Yeah.
But women have a lot of different fears about, childbirth and things like that. You just got to read her book for that. But what I would say is support. Another reason, and this isn't always talked about, women decide in their hearts maybe not to have more children is because they can't imagine having more children with the current level of support their husband is providing, which sometimes isn't great.
And it's not just that their husband is providing, sometimes it's also the security of the community and the fear that they won't have support in the community. And I'm not talking about like, oh, is somebody going to be willing to come in and babysit my kids? I'm talking about they're fearful of the judgment that they're going to get from society, from their community if they choose to have another baby.
Yeah.
And but it is a real big deal when you're fearful that you're not going to have the support from your husband regarding caring for the kids, which is a huge deal.
Many times along the road, Angie has become exasperated, tired, and she communicates with me, and she sits me down, we go out to dinner or something, she says, we just can't keep going in this manner. And then I go, well, what do you need more help with? And we get really, really clear on how I can help. And then I completely shift. And
he does. He shifts gear. He's like 180 man. He's really good at that.
I shift gears. She lets me know. I shift gears because the last thing I'd want her to feel is, wow, our team, our marriage team, isn't capable of handling another child.
Another blessing from
God.
Another
blessing from God. And so I shift gears and I support and I help. And it'd be great if I just did that proactively before she, broke down. But sometimes us men are a little dense. And so...
And sometimes us women think that we are strong, right? Like we can preach to ourselves, we can do this. We put ourselves in this position.
Yeah.
We should be tougher. And in reality, yes, I mean, we do need to toughen up, right, moms?
Yeah.
But we also need to be leaning on our husbands, and we need to be communicating and really approaching the whole parenting thing as a team.
Yep. And if you don't feel like
huge.
it's a team, then you're not going to want to have another child because you don't feel that sense of teamwork.
Right.
So that's a good conversation to have. Another one's vision. Like just a vision beyond what's normal. A vision, maybe aligning with, God's intentions and God's vision for family, which is huge. And, as husbands, we get a cast vision, we get to, talk with our wives, not just about children, obviously, all kinds of things. Why would we not bring our visionary mindset in leadership and our work back into our homes and with our wives and children and so forth? And so that is huge, but it's the wife has got to remind herself of that vision, right?
Yeah, so that's what I want to talk to you guys about as well. So there's the big vision, which you need to be in alignment with your spouse about the big vision of raising up the next generation for the Lord.
Yeah.
But so for me, I actually think legacy. You guys know I've written a lot about leaving a legacy. That's kind of like my mantra is I'm leaving a legacy if I'm being intentional or not. Like we all are leaving a legacy, right? And that's in those kids. It's huge ministry. And I think that the minute that we start really seeing how powerful our role is as a mom in the home, and that it's literally going to impact exponentially all over the planet for generations to come, we can be more motivated to be intentional, right? Like I remember when we had 3 kids and Isaac was like, let's have more, we're a good team at this. And I wasn't fully convinced yet, if you know what I mean. And I realized that I was at a cross point vision-wise, and I started saying, you know what, I always wanted to be a missionary, and I am a missionary in my home. I'm making disciples of all nations as I'm raising my 7 kids, and then they will go out and they will get married and they will raise the next generation, and then they will go out. And so that's a huge vision, and you need to remind yourself of that daily. Like my job and what I do every day is the real deal. And
things we've done, things I've done, things Angie have done, have impacted tens of thousands of people, maybe even hundreds of thousands of people in our life already. However, there is nothing that will compare to the impact we have pouring into our children to be influencers in this world for the kingdom of God. And their children and so forth. The legacy of that far supersedes when we die. It's what's going to live on. And so that legacy is crucial. And I think the next thing is valued. Women feeling valued of the significance of what they're doing. And us men, we get the opportunity to remind, because there's a lot of mundane in raising kids. There's a lot of moments that are challenging and tough to keep pushing forward. And it's hard to imagine sometimes adding another person to that mix. But if you remind your wives of the impact they're having, like my wife, she's ambitious. She knows how to hustle. She loves to impact, okay? So, but she understands within her own self, but also as a team and talking together, that what she's doing with her children supersedes the value of anything else. And that's huge. So husbands need to be valuing their wives, because the minute that we don't feel valued is the minute that we stop losing vision. But we also need to be validated,
right?
Yeah.
Because valuing someone
That's
doesn't
true.
necessarily mean that they're actually speaking
Yep.
something that's validating.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important that they're validated, and that we are reassured of a security. I know a lot of women who have even said to me, if I have another kid, I'm scared that maybe that's too many for my husband.
Yeah.
And fearful
Step
that,
up, husband. Come on.
yeah. And so I just,
Don't be wimpy.
my heart goes out to those women that they don't feel secure in their marriages enough to be willing to receive that blessing and their
If
hearts
there's
are in
that
the right place.
unsettling, like if the husband's looking at pornography, or if they're doing anything, they're looking at women when they're out,
Yep.
those kinds of things can create just that. Can create a massive insecurity of, maybe you wanting to have more children and and so forth, because it's that little bit of insecurity. So you got to get all of that out. We got to live righteous lives. We got to hold each other accountable in marriage. And the men have to lead in valiant ways, and women too. So I just think that that's huge. And what are we going to say? I'm not going to have more kids because I don't want my capacity to be raised by God. I don't want more kids because I don't want God to bless and provide in the ways He will. Sometimes ways we don't understand.
Yeah. Another thing to think about too is another reason why women don't want to have more kids, and this is a hard one to say out loud because it may actually offend some of you, but I'm not sorry, because we need to be honest with ourselves, but this is selfishness. And I can speak to this because I've personally struggled with this. I'm human.
Yeah.
And we all are. So you shouldn't be offended by me saying that, and asking you the question, are you choosing not to have more kids because you're being selfish? And you're not wanting to give up maybe a good body, or you're not wanting to give up more time because it's another commitment. When you have a baby, they're going to be in your home for 18 more years. Or is it that you're scared that you're going to be too tired, or having another kid means my heart can't possibly grow anymore to love another child, and how can I have a close relationship if there's more than 3 of them?
It's such a limited
I
view.
hear so many of these kinds of
God
their
will
voices.
expand your love. Your love
Yes.
grows.
It's true. I
It's
was actually
unbelievable.
just having a conversation with our oldest daughter about how when I was a younger mom, I used to think that my heart was like one size, and that a part of it would go to my husband, and then the rest of it would be like cut
The
up
whole
for
pie
my
gets bigger.
Yeah, it would be cut up for my kids, but the reality is that your heart actually grows.
That's God's economy.
And
The whole pie grows.
It's true. And so, and to see the blessing, I want to challenge you in this, because you may think, well, I may not be able to provide what each of my kids need if I have 7 kids, 5 kids, whatever it is, right? Well, I want to challenge you that if you have another child, it actually might be the boot camp that God is ordering for one of your other children to grow in their selflessness, right?
Yeah.
Because I feel sorry for the children where parents are like, I'm going to have one so that I can travel the world with them and give them everything. And guess what? They aren't giving them.
Self-indulgence.
They're giving them self-indulgence. And truthfully, it is a boot camp as a family every day to be tried and tested and to be molded and crafted into God's likeness, as you have to give up your desires, right? And
Yep.
I just want to challenge you in that, because I think that that's actually the number one biggest hurdle for all women. And honestly, you get over it once, and then guess what? It rears its ugly head again and again and again and again and again.
So I would ask yourselves, what are the things we're not talking about that might be subconsciously even holding us back from making a decision, having one more child?
Is it fear? Fear of the physical pain of birth, fear of not being able to do it? Is it security? You don't have the support from a spouse or a community. People are going to think you're weird if you have another kid. Is it selfishness? Is it lack of vision, that you as a mom are doing something purposeful that God has called you to in this season of your life? This season where we have childbearing privileges is short. I'm telling you, I'm almost 40. And it is not as easy to get pregnant now as it was when I was in my earlier 20s. I know, he's been telling me I'm old for a while, but I mean, honestly, it's not as easy as it was. Don't take for granted the blessing of fertility. It it really is a gift from the Lord, and it can pass by you very quickly. And so I would just urge you to be prayerful in this situation. Isaac and I have taken it one kid at a time, praying, Lord, what is your will for us and our family and for the next step? We never set out to have 7 or 8 or even 4. It was purely, Lord, we just want to be obedient to you.
And the rule is, if our reasons for not are selfish, then we can't.
If they're not biblical
reasons,
if
they're not biblical,
then
and
we
if they're selfish, then we surrender to God and have.
I want to end on one last thing regarding surrendering. You know, we sit in church and we sing, I surrender all. And we want to be submissive to God's will for our life. But how many of us honestly say, God, you can have it all, but you can't have that. You can't have my fertility. You can have that, but you can't tell me that I need to have another kid.
Yeah.
Or that I need to adopt another kid. Or that I need to be a foster parent. Or whatever it is. There are things that we all struggle with, that we hold back from the Lord. And we need to be careful not to compartmentalize the Lord and what he's calling us to as his church.
Yeah.
And so I just want to end on that. And
so have the tough conversations. You know, someone said my hubby's not into it and I want to have another one. Well, let's lean on the Lord. Let's read the Bible. Let's have deep conversations together about get through the real reasons why we're not moving forward. And if they're selfish, well, what does God have to say about that? And that's for you and God to work out.
Right. So lastly, we're going to give you an exercise. Are you ready? You got to go on a date with your husband or even into your backyard. And you need to make a pros and cons list. And you need to be really honest. And look at it and go, why am I struggling with this idea?
Yeah.
Why? You need to be honest about the why. And when you're honest about the why, and you pray, genuinely asking the Holy Spirit to reveal his will, God is faithful in all things.
Amen.
We love you guys. I know this was a hard talk. But I just want to be honest with you because I love you. So have a good night. Bye.